Need to bulletproof your knees? What if I told you doing this backwards walking isn't gonna do it? Do this instead. What's up, Dr. Nick Bonforte here. So in today's video, we're gonna be going over how to build strong and healthy knees. Now, the classic thing we see all over the internet is backwards walking to really bulletproof our knees. Now, could backwards walking be great? Absolutely. But what if your knee issue is actually a result of a hip mobility problem? Or what if your knee problem is actually a result of a lack of rotation at your knee? Or what if your ankle has a mobility issue? Or what if you have a strength issue at your hip? That's why we have to really scale back and figure out what is the most likely contributing factor to the actual knee issue, and not just backwards walk until the cows come home. Because if you're missing, say, a particular hip mobility problem or a hip strength issue, all the amount of backwards walking might not solve the issue because you're missing up the chain at the hip. Now, a lot of times, people that I work with and people that I've seen over my 15 years of experience working with people, you are solving above and below the actual problem. The knee is just the middle joint caught in the middle of everything. We have to look above and below, and yeah, we have to isolate some knee as well, but the majority of the problems that we're looking at is above and below the actual issue. If we miss those parts, then we're kind of missing the boat in actually addressing this. So by just focusing and isolating at the knee, at the quad, yes, incredibly important, but we have to look at other things as well. Now in this video, we're gonna be focusing on building healthier and stronger knees from a mobility perspective. So when we think strong and healthy knees, we just immediately think resistance training and all these things, but we could build healthy and strong knees by giving good mobility to the joint. So we're gonna be focusing, one, at the knee itself. We think the knee just bends and straightens, but it actually rotates. We gotta rotate the knee and make sure it has good mobility there. We'll be focusing on an aspect there, and then we'll also be focusing at the hip from a mobility perspective. So let's get into it. With this exercise, we're working on tibial rotation at the knee. Tibial rotation is a typical lack of motion at the knee that individuals experience. So we're gonna be working on eccentrically loading into that motion, meaning the band is attached and it's trying to pull me into internal rotation at the lower leg, but I'm letting it go slowly. So I'm letting it win, but under control. When we work on eccentrics, it helps us improve the mobility that we're going through versus just repping it out and not having any time under tension throughout this. So what we want to do is stabilize on the sides of the knee. We're going to bring the ankle all the way up to kind of lock it out, and then we want to rotate out as far as we got. That will go into tibial external rotation. Then from here, we want to let the band win and pull us into tibial internal rotation in a controlled fashion until you feel like you can't go any further. And you could feel that either A, your heel's just sliding on the floor, or B, your knee will start to go in like this. You want to keep the knee really in line with the hip, and you just want to rotate about the lower leg. So you go out and you let it win, and then you repeat. What you're doing with eccentrics, typically with eccentrics, I like a higher rep range, 12 to 15, so you get more input, and I like to add a tempo to this. So like a 3, 2, 1 tempo, and you come back out. 3, 2, 1, which gives enough input into the system. Now, the purpose of this, again, is to work on the rotation piece, biasing tibial internal rotation in this case to ultimately help the knee actually rotate better. If the knee rotates better, especially going under load through here, you're strengthening it and getting it healthier because you're moving through a range of motion under load. That will ultimately help the knee in the long run. Hey, real quick, if you're liking this content, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It really helps out with my channel, and I really do appreciate it. All right, back to the content. With this exercise, we're gonna be working on hip internal rotation. So my knees are gonna be at a 45-degree angle, or my hip is at a 45-degree angle, my knees are at a 90-degree angle. Having the yoga block in place just to even out the pelvis and give feedback to squeeze on. So we wanna squeeze the yoga block and then raise the heel up as far as you can into internal rotation. You'll feel the top of your hip wanting to cramp or burn. What this is doing is improving the active control of hip internal rotation. Why is that important? Because when we work on getting better mobility up at the hip, if we're thinking that a hip mobility issue is contributing down the chain to a knee issue, by working on hip internal rotation, we ultimately help the knee function better. So from here, we're just staying stiff. We go up as far as we can, hold with the beginning phases. I usually like to hold 5-second holds and then come back down and then repeat multiple reps, say 3 sets of 8 to 10. That way you're getting enough input into the body to make actual change. Now, if this gets easy, a way you could progress it is simply just bring your knees higher up. When you go higher up and you're almost at this 90-90 position, the hip is gonna function a lot more. So it'll be a lot harder to actually go up into internal rotation when you're in more of a range of motion versus being down like this. So you wanna play within your range, but the concept is working on hip mobility, internal rotation to then ultimately help the knee down the chain. I hope this video gave you some insight and value to understand why we want to look at different aspects when we're trying to get healthier and stronger knees. In this case, we focus on from a mobility perspective to activate into a range of motion with at the knee and the hip. Now, there are other things you probably have to work on, most likely, but this again is just zooming out and making sure we understand, although we can't just focus on one particular point, we want to think about other things that contribute to that. When we're dealing with knee issues, it's typically above and below the actual problem. In this video, we focused on one above, which is the hip, and one localized at the knee. If you did find value in this, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe down below to my channel, like this video, and let me know down in the comments if this was helpful and if you tried out any of the exercises and which one you liked the most. This is Dr. Nick. I'll see you next time.